Despite this coaching staff playing a ton of true freshmen, they can do it even more.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up with the Darrell, Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, hanging out with us as he does every single Friday. We'll talk about more of the action for Auburn basketball with what happened Wednesday night, as well as what's going to happen tomorrow night as they head to Houston to take on the Houston Cougars. But let's start things off with, can Auburn play even more young guys in these final weeks of the football season? Darrell, Hugh Freeze said earlier this week when asked about the quarterback, it's like, all right, thoughts on playing the young guys. He's like, you got to do the best chance to win, but you've also got to look at the big picture. And of course, the big picture we all assume that he's referring to is the future and getting these guys ready, making sure they're happy, and you keep them out of the portal and all of that. He was talking directly about the quarterback situation when asked that question, but this staff, like, they've played so many freshmen. My gut reaction has been, can they play more? And I actually think that they can.
It's a really weird, conflicting kind of contradiction because typically as a coach, your job is to play whoever helps give you the best chance to win. Yeah. But then at some point during the season, Zach, reality sets in. And I'm not saying you punt on the season or you throw in the towel with 3 games left to go. You try to win every single one of those games. But realistically, it may be even more beneficial to play the young kids to accomplish that goal, if you catch what I'm saying. So normally in this scenario, you would say, okay, I'm going to punt on the season. I'm going to sit some seniors down. I'm going to see what I have in the future. In Auburn's case, you may be putting the best dudes out there that give you a best chance to win or the youngest. So it could be a win-win, and I think we're going to see an influx of kids that we haven't seen, and maybe, and I don't know the numbers, I don't know the snaps, but as everybody knows, this is the last 3 games of the year. Let's just hypothetically say a kid hasn't gotten into a game. You don't burn his red shirt by playing him the last 3 games. You're under that threshold. So I think for all those reasons, you're going to see a lot more names maybe and faces that you haven't seen to this point.
Yeah, and that's a lot of Auburn fans are using that argument for Walker White. We'll see. I'm still a little skeptical that that's going to happen, but we'll see. Auburn's played a ton of freshmen, Darrell, and for the most part, it's improved the position that they're playing at. In fact, I can't think of a situation where they've played a freshman heavy at a position and it hasn't gotten better at that position. But I do think there's room for like them to play more guys. You look at the defensive line, like we haven't seen a ton of TJ Lindsey. We haven't seen a ton of Joe Phillips at edge. We haven't really seen a ton of, oh my goodness. He played like 6 snaps. He's great. True freshman.
Amaris Williams.
Yeah, he played 6 snaps against Vanderbilt, and myself included when I did the post game. It's like, wow, he looked great. And a lot of other people are, yeah, he played a lot more. And it's like, he really didn't. You just saw him on all 6 of the snaps that he was in because he was such an impact. I think you see more snaps for Amaris Williams. I think you see more snaps for Perry Thompson, who also played 6 snaps against Vandy. I don't know if you see some of these guys that we haven't been seeing consistently, but I do think we see more of the guys that we've seen a little bit of.
I think TJ Lindsey is a great example of a guy that maybe you could see more, maybe a DJ Barber. Amaris Williams, Perry Thompson are guys that I think you're going to see just because we've seen them before.
Sure.
Right? And you know, a guy like Malik Blockton, you're counting on for a lot of snaps. I think along the offensive line, because you don't want to get a quarterback killed, I don't think that's where you'll see an influx of freshmen. You don't want a guy going in there that misses assignments and gets a Hank Brown, or, you know, if for some chance Walker White played, you don't want to see that happen. Tight end is another position where Michael Riley probably needs to get more snaps. He's not a freshman, but I'd like to see him get more snaps. But I don't think along the offensive line. I think that'll stay consistent in the 2 deep that we've seen.
And also the offensive line, for the most part, we think is all going to be here next year.
Right.
So if the whole argument is to prep for the future, you probably should play the O-line.
I'll tell you, a mystery guy to me, Zach, is somebody that we really felt had some good practices, even in the spring when you and I went and watched, and that's Bryce Cain. I don't know why he's not getting more targets, more snaps.
Who are you going to take the snaps away from?
Who are you going to take it from? That's a good point.
And that's kind of my thing with Perry. Like, okay, well, if Perry plays, either KLS or Cam Coleman's not on the field. And I don't love that.
No. Cam Brown, I guess, would get less snaps in any scenario like that. Yeah.
Sure. Right. Which, I mean, he's really left too. And
I wish Bryce Cain could play the slot.
And
I wish he could play the slot. I'd love to see Bryce Cain move inside and play a little bit of slot. He's so fast. But, to kind of back up Robert Lewis. And, we've seen some of that as far as depth at receiver. But I don't know.
And Malcolm. If Bryce Cain plays, like, you're taking Malcolm out.
Which you don't want to do.
You don't want to do.
So receiver is a position where I think it's an embarrassment of riches, where it might be a limited opportunity until people move on. Look, when KLS graduates and goes to the league next year, and if Cam Brown sticks around, even if he doesn't, then that's where you start to see these snaps given more consistently to all the younger guys.
All right, so these are some of the notable guys that have played in one game this year on defense. Amon Lane. Jamonta Waller, who's out for the year.
Yeah.
Laquan Robinson.
Ooh.
Joe Phillips, TJ Lindsey, DJ Barber, Darren Reed, and then Antoine Fagans. Those are kind of the notable guys who have played one game, so they could play in these upcoming games and they wouldn't lose the red shirt. So I think that's worth noting. As far as guys who have played one game on the offensive side of the football that I think is notable, it's a shorter list, in my opinion. Like Seth Wilfred is on there, the JUCO offensive tackle, and that's kind of it.
Is Bryce Cain play? How many does it show him playing?
Yeah, Bryce Cain's played in 2 games. He's played 20 snaps this season.
Well,
so he played 17 against Alabama A&M, and he's played 3 against New Mexico.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Probably play him against ULM, and then you wouldn't see him again the rest of the year to preserve that red shirt.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I think, like, some of these talented, young, I guess they're all specifically defensive guys, and then Perry's played in more games than already anyway. But some of these dudes, like, I don't think the red shirt matters unless it's important to them, and it might be important to them. But a lot of these, I don't think the red shirt matters as much. Bryce Cain, it might. Bryce Cain's red shirt might matter, just because I think the path to the NFL is clearer with some of these guys than others, just because of natural gifts and their frame and also just the positions that they play. I think some of these guys have the skill set to go to the league in a few years. They don't need that 5th year of college football to get to that point. So I do think that's worth noting as well.
It's also important. Remember the Harsin Shell game that was played about redshirting kids that wanted to jump into the portal.
Yeah,
he wanted to burn their red shirts. If you're a kid that says, "Okay, look, I don't think I'm going to play at Auburn next year, but where I do want to play, I want to have an extra year of eligibility. Please redshirt me." That's where it matters too. But in your scenario, you're right. I mean, some of these other dudes are going to be gone in 2 or 3 years. But if you feel like you want to play at your new university 4 years, you will ask to be redshirted. That's the only scenario where I think you throw your hand up and say, hey.
Yeah, and this situation's passed. But, if DeMarcus Riddick hadn't played as much already, it's like –
oh, yeah.
But it's like, I don't think redshirting him matters. I think he's going to go to the league,
Exactly. And you want to get what you can out of him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Joe Phillips has a chance. I think DJ Barber is interesting. We'll see. I mean, there's so many traits that he's shown that are impressive, but it's like you got to get on the field at some point before we really can have that conversation. But I don't know. Worth noting for sure. So let's so all that to say, yes, they've played a ton of freshmen, but there is room for more snaps, and I think that comes mainly with Perry and with Amaris. It would be my guess.
Yes, and I just have this sneaky suspicion. But again, the Joe Phillips scenario, who you can take off the field? Crawford, Jaylen McLoud, no. When Riddick lines up out there. So, but I'd like to see him in a couple more snaps against perhaps ULM. rushing the passer. That'd be intriguing to me.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with him being on the field in those situations. Kieran has gotten better. I think Kieran 3 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, you can give him some of Kieran snaps, but now I don't. Now I don't love that.
He's figuring it out. He's getting it, and I cannot wait to see what he does next year. He's one of those guys. Remember now, Jaylen McLoud took a little time to figure it out too, Zach, last year. People need to remember he didn't just come in and set the world on fire. It took him a while to get acclimated too.
Yeah, and the acclimation was different. It looked like J-Mac was battling some sort of injury, and then I think Kieran, the speed of the game, I think took him a second. And I think there was some assignments. You could tell he was thinking, like, do I have contain on this play? Do I need to penetrate on this play? Like, you could tell he was kind of thinking exactly what he needed to do. So, but yeah, I agree. I think Kieran's going to be awesome next year. Yeah, and just the fact of the matter is, like, they're moving Riddick all over the place still.
They really are.
And so, like, it's going to be easy to get him snaps if they want to. He played 65 last week.
That's such a big thing, too, not to kind of glaze over that point. That really, from an offensive standpoint, trying to scheme against him is very difficult when you're moving him all over the field like that.
Sure. All right, the Auburn Tigers and Bruce Pearl, Auburn basketball, head to Houston tomorrow night. And what might be one of the biggest non-conference games in all of college basketball. And the Tigers have a shot. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is the best place to hire quality folks for your small business. Darrell, you run a small business, and you have relied on LinkedIn Jobs to bring you great talent.
Got one outstanding right now in the last week that we put out there to fill a position that's very crucial, very important. And so we'll see what kind of candidate we get back. Usually, they do all the legwork for you. It's so great. And we've got, like I said, we've got an existing request out there. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep. I mean, you wear a million hats when running a company, and sometimes you need some help. You need some help. You can't devote, another full-time job into finding somebody. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you do all of that. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for just $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. The Auburn Tigers were very impressive in the season opener, and Darrell, we'll get your thoughts on the season opener specifically in a second. But to me, you look at what they're calling a neutral site game. They're playing Houston in Houston. I mean, come on. But when this was announced, I mean, it garnered some attention. But with what Auburn did on Wednesday night, I mean, it's hard not to circle this game, even if you're outside of Auburn or Houston and you care about college basketball. Like, this is a huge, huge game.
There's such a difference between it being a huge game locally. Like, for the Auburn program, we've had some of those games in the past. Zach, I'm telling you right now, the buzz in college basketball this Saturday is this game. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Joseph Goodman, who's a clown, or some of these other national analysts and pundits. Everybody is focusing on, hyping, talking about, circling this game. Words like potential Elite Eight matchup. It's rare that you get a game this early in the season that's this high profile. Those are the types of phrases that college basketball analysts that have followed the game and experts for a long time, that Jay Billis is. It is absolutely must-see TV. And the fact that it's in Houston at the Toyota Center and an NBA arena. Look, Houston, we knew this was going to be a tough game. I think the KenPom thing is 2 versus 3 at this point.
It's 1 versus 2, Darrell.
Okay, it changed. Yeah. So that in itself, and Houston's very good. I will tell you this, Zach. The thing about Houston is they got 2 guards, okay? LJ Cryer and Malik Wilson, who are graduate seniors, fifth-year seniors, right? So they both average double figures.
Yeah.
Get you 14 or 15 a game. So when you got guys that played 5 years, okay, that's a big deal. And then the one thing you're going to see that Auburn will not run into a lot is a guy named Jawan Roberts that can neutralize Janai Broome. I'm not saying he will. 6'8", a little more physical than Broome. Broome's a little bit taller, but that big-bodied power forward that can match up with Janai Broome that a lot of teams don't have. So you've got an elite backcourt that's very seasoned veteran. And then you got this Roberts cat who, oh, by the way, is another graduate senior. They are so deep. They are so veteran. By the way, who does that remind you of? Auburn.
About to say, it's like, are you describing Auburn?
So you got the guys like the Denver Jones. So this matchup, I think, man, if it was truly on a neutral floor, if they played this game truly on a neutral floor, it would have, I feel like Houston has a slight advantage playing in Houston. But Houston beat Jackson State by 57. Oh, by the way, does that sound familiar? Except that Vermont's no Jackson State. We'll get to that later. But Jackson State's a pretty good SWAC team. Houston did to them what Auburn did to Vermont. Both teams coming off iconic blowout victories. The depth's there, the veteran makeup of the ball club. This could be just one of those classic games in November, and you'll hear it. You will hear it. I'm not trying to promote anything but safe, moderate drinking. But if you were to play a drinking game watching this game Saturday and take one every time someone said, hey, this is a preseason, this is a preview of a matchup that's going to happen in March, you would need Z-Biotics.
Yeah, be sure to maybe take a swig of Z-Biotics pre-alcohol before the game starts. If you're going to play the drinking games.
A lot during the game. You're going to hear, hey, guys, this is a preview of March.
Yeah.
Or perhaps even April. You're going to hear that Saturday. And that goes to show you the stratosphere that Auburn basketball is in right now.
So when you look at KenPom, and I mean, most of these teams have played just one game. Super small sample size, but still fun to look at. Houston's number 1 in KenPom. Auburn is number 2. Duke is 4. Auburn goes to Duke this year. Alabama is 5. Of course, we play Alabama. And then Purdue's up here. Purdue's 11. I mean, when you just look at the slate of games on Auburn's schedule this year,
and
it's going to be so fun.
Where's Iowa State in there? Because they play them in the Maui tournament. Iowa State's pretty high in the AP.
Oh, yeah, they're 8.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
insane.
That's happening. That's not a what-if draw. That Auburn and Iowa State play.
Yeah.
It is insane. But you know what? If anything, and we'll talk more about it at the end, but the third segment, but if anything that I saw or read or saw clips of Wednesday night, we talked about it. This team is built for that kind of schedule, if that's an indication. And I get it. It could be a one-off, but they didn't play a mid-major that sucked. They didn't play an opponent in a lower classification. They played a very good NCAA tournament team that's been there 4 or 5 years in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
But this game Saturday is going to be huge. I mean, how fun is it that the eyes of the college basketball world will be at the Toyota Center watching Auburn? That is the premier game of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I think I speak for all Auburn fans. Like, it's fun to be involved in a game that matters again.
Yeah, it's been
so long.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about across the athletics threshold, right?
Yeah.
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 Other than individual sports like golf, I mean, Auburn hasn't had. I mean, let's be honest. I love Butch Thompson. Yeah. Baseball hasn't had an important game in a very, very long time that matters.
No, last year was rough for him. Yeah.
Softball hasn't been a super regional where you got to get that dub. It's been very, very in the desert and that kind of thing. So for this to be a situation, now Auburn basketball gave Auburn fans that in the SEC tournament last year. Every game mattered, and then it just kept getting more important. So, yeah, this has got an Elite Eight feel to it on a court that's not on campus, but still. This is the funny part about this. Kelvin Sampson complained and moaned and whined so much a couple years ago when Auburn got to play Houston in the second round of the tournament in Birmingham.
That's right.
He acted like a little – and – now you're playing this game. I get it. It's not the NCAA tournament. You should feel like a postseason tournament. But Auburn's going there. They are going there, showing they're not afraid to play Houston in Houston's backyard. And, by the way, it's not Auburn. They didn't have to play Auburn in Auburn. It was Birmingham. Birmingham's not Auburn country. So, And they also played Texas A&M, Zach, in a charity exhibition like Auburn did, FAU.
Yeah.
Houston didn't beat them 14. Just kind of a reference. I don't know. Of course, Texas A&M lost. They're open.
Does that matter? I don't
does
know.
It matter? It's hard to gauge from that, but just it
is. You're right. But yeah, the Tigers looked phenomenal Wednesday night. Darrell, you weren't able to go live with me, so let's jump into what that game meant.
Sure.
Your guy Chaney Johnson. Goodness gracious. That's next on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sports book. Darrell, right now you can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets.
And a lot of good college football games this weekend, too.
No kidding.
And when you have basketball and football to choose from in that book, that's a really, that $5 can go a very long way, right? Very long way.
Yep. They've got new lines over at FanDuel pertaining to Auburn basketball. You can bet on Janai Broome or Denver Jones to win the John Wooden Award. Janai Broome plus 1,400, Denver Jones plus 14,000. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, head over to FanDuel.com today. And you can bet $5, turn into $150 if that first bet wins. So be sure to check it out all at FanDuel. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel. Darrell, you love Home Field Apparel. I love Home Field Apparel. My biggest issue with Home Field Apparel, and this isn't an issue, it just goes to show the level of quality, is anytime I get a shirt from Home Field Apparel, I get to wear it like twice, and then my wife finds it and starts putting it in her drawers and stuff. And so I'll see her. I'm like, that's my shirt. She's like, it's mine now. These shirts are always so soft and so comfortable. That's the only downside with me when it comes to Home Field Apparel.
There must be a trend with that because I got me a retro 1997 Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah.
And my daughters wear it. I'm like,
okay.
I see it. They come over to my house, whatever, and then they go home with it. So I think it's a trend of stealing Home Field Apparel gear.
I guess so. I mean, I think that goes to show how high quality it is. And the designs are super retro and cool. So obviously, if you're watching this show, you're going to be more interested in the Auburn part of their website at homefieldapparel.com. But they've got all colleges. Darrell, you've got Arizona stuff. You've got you've got Pitt stuff as well. So be sure to check that out, homefieldapparel.com. I've actually been asked like 3 times in the last week what the promo code is. War Eagle 24, War Eagle 24, no spaces, War Eagle 24 at homefieldapparel.com. I mean, the Tigers were relentless Wednesday night. And the biggest takeaway, we can talk about how Miles Kelly was electric. We can talk about how Chaney Johnson appears to have taken that next step from role player to like legitimate contributor. We can talk about how, there were questions on JP Pegues playing 30 plus minutes a night at Furman and shooting it a million times to playing 20-ish minutes and going 3 for 3 from the floor.
Right.
But to me, the biggest thing is, and you hinted at it earlier, Vermont is a good basketball team. They are a mainstay in the NCAA tournament, and Auburn made it look like they were a joke. And they didn't care, and they didn't let off the gas. They whooped them in the first half, and then typically, how many times do we see Auburn just let teams back in it? Nope. The first 10 minutes of that second half told me all I needed to know about the upside of this team.
So many key indicators. Number one, I warned everybody Tuesday when we did the show Wednesday. I was like, look, look at these SEC teams that are getting beat by mid-majors, and Vermont's a good mid-major, and I could see this game being close into the second half and then Auburn pulling away. Holy cow, never. Again, I'm not trying to throw any shade at any SWAC schools or anything, the MEAC or something like that. This is a score that typically happens when you play those type of schools. This team is better, for reference, and I hate to say it, if people have PTSD, plug your ears, than Yale, for instance. Okay? So imagine Auburn coming out in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year and beating Yale like this. That's what this was. Vermont's better. Vermont had played Duke in the NCAA tournament last year. Vermont is in the American Athletic Conference, which is a decent conference. They had just come off a 67-62 victory at UAB. Here's what I saw that I liked. The efficiency of scoring per minute by a lot of these Auburn players. For instance, Denver Jones played 16 minutes and had 16 points. Miles Kelly, who was absolutely unconscious, had 21 points in 18 minutes. When you score more points than minutes you play, ungodly. My man.
Yeah, and that one, like, he's not going to make 7 threes every night. But the fact that we know that it's possible.
It's nice to see it. When you
it could happen again. Like, that's nice to see.
When you haven't seen it since Reagan was president, it's nice to see. You got Chaney Johnson, who I told you at the beginning of the year is a key. If you get 10 and 6 from him every game, watch out. And you got 13 and 9 from him. He's transformed his body. And, oh, by the way, he only played 17 minutes. The efficiency of what they're doing when they're in the game. Now, do I have a couple of Chad Bickham-Mazar, 17 minutes, 11 points. The rebounding was good. I want to see more from Cardwell, who played 19 minutes and didn't score. I'm a little concerned with Broom with 22 minutes and 12 points, but he'll get his.
Not worried about Janai. Yeah,
but I do want Auburn to still 55% from the free throw line concerns me a little bit. In a close game, you got to do better. So if you're Bruce Pearl, you look at this and you say, guys, an elite performance. But, oh, by the way, you better start hitting some free throws, or when we go to Houston Saturday, it's going to get us beat. That's how you package this, right? And that's how you frame this. Because how else could you come out of that game and say one negative? I mean, that was about as a perfect performance on the basketball court as you can get, and it was against an NCAA tournament team.
No question. No question about it. I think that was all extremely well said.
I think that was a lot of – I mean, Chris Moore gives you 11 minutes, no points, but what? He gets you 3 rebounds, right? Oh, and Hudson. I think people were really high on the way Hudson played. He played what? Let's see. 16 minutes, had 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, that's not bad. That's efficient.
All of his stuff was pretty late, too, if I remember correctly. So.
But he's a very good defender. He is a guy, Zach, and I know we got to – that in a game late, let's say, where you've got somebody that's a power forward that you've got to come in and shut down a little bit or slow down, Hudson's your dude to be able to do that. A defensive specialist. He's got size.
So many pieces.
Yeah, he's
There's
physical.
Just so many pieces
so
on this
that's
team.
Where you can use. And if you're happy with that role, you'll win championships. If people assume their roles and accept their roles, this team could go pretty far.
The role I was most concerned with, and not a concern like I didn't think he was going to do it, I think it was just the biggest question, was Pegues. Just because what he's going to be asked to do this year is so different than what he was asked to do, previously at Furman. And 1 for 1, I mean, he shot the ball 3 times. He made every shot. It's like, okay.
And you did this without Pettiford scoring.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to score. Broom's going to score. That's why I think it's going to be interchangeable. People are going to pick each other up from night to night, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, so you and I will go live Saturday night after.
By the way, here it is. I'm saying it now. Book it. Auburn beats Houston. It's time for the first DAP light show in the yard. Let's go. It's going to be epic.
People were asking for it last night.
I've already gotten some word from some key people that if Auburn beats Houston, buckle up. It's going to be a good one.
I can't wait. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP6410, Instagram, Darrell DAP. And then again, I cannot wait. Saturday night live with you. Yep,
we'll be there. Be sure you're subscribed. And we'll also, of course, drop the audio, however you're consuming the audio version of this show. Like the video, please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.